Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all here to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 25 San Francisco's annual Remembrance Day service. I'd like to begin today with a quick land acknowledgement, and then we will post our colors. Okay, no worries. And they'll be piped in by our piper, Charlie, who's apparently watching the ground better than I am, so he'll know when to start. As we begin today's service, I want to acknowledge that we hold this service of remembrance and commemoration on Indigenous land. Liberty Cemetery and Petaluma in general sits on the unceded land that was once home to the coastal Miwok and the Grattan Ranchero people. It is included in Session Track 297 of Treaty P of 1851, which was designed to cede all claim to the territory and remove the people that lived here to the Clear Lake Reserve. Today, as we remember those who bravely answered their country's call to service, we should also remember and acknowledge the people indigenous to this land, their culture, their language, their freedom, all of which were taken from them. I'll now turn it over to Charlie to pipe our colors in. I'd ask that you remain standing for the national anthem. Hartnagel, who will be stepping in for Chris Hogue, who apparently traffic delayed him because he's walking in right now, so we'll get him on the second reading, who will be reading the Prime Minister's message.
Before we proceed to the event which has brought us together, let us pause to think reverently of those of our comrades who by sea, by land, and in the air laid down their lives for their sovereign and country. Their sacrifice will ever inspire us to labor on, to the end that those who survive and need our aid may be assured of assistance, and that the country in which we live and for which they died may ever be worthy of the sacrifice they made.
From the Office of the Prime Minister, dated November 11th, 2025, I would like to convey my warmest greetings to all Canadians as we mark Remembrance Day. Each year on November 11th, we gather in solidarity to commemorate the bravery of every Canadian who has served and those who continue to serve our country in times of war, military conflict, and peace. On this solemn occasion, we pay tribute to those who have helped to ensure that we live in this freedom and peace, and those who foster the same values in the countries across the globe. Let us come together to observe 2 minutes of silence in honor of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and to ensure that their stories are passed on to future generations. In doing so, we preserve their legacy and renew our commitment to building a peaceful world for all, lest we forget.
Thank you, Margaret and JD. Next, I call upon our trumpeter, Andre Louvier, for the last toast, which will be followed by 2 minutes of silence, followed by the lament from our piper, Charlie Martin, and then Reveille or the Roused by Andre again. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call upon our acting chaplain again, Margaret Krieger, for the act of remembrance. This will be followed by Comrade Christopher Ho reading in Flanders Field, and Chris JG has your copy of it. And followed by one of our cadets who will be reading in Flanders Field an answer.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. They shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Flanders Field by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. Now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field.
Rest ye in peace, ye Flanders dead. The fight that ye so bravely led, we've taken up, and we will keep true faith with you who lie asleep. With each a cross to mark his bed, and poppies glowing overhead, where once his own life blood ran red. So let your rest be sweet and deep in Flanders Fields. Fear not that ye have died for naught. The torch he threw to us we caught. 10,000,000 hands will hold it high, and freedom's light shall never die. We've learned the lesson that ye taught in Flanders Fields.
Next, I'd like to call upon our cadets once again for the placing of the wreath. again, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone here today. It's great to see some good turnout. It's our first chance to see the cadets this year, and I see their ranks have grown in size, which is always a wonderful thing to see, and lots of new cadets as well, which is also a wonderful thing to see that continue. My guess is that many of the cadets themselves, probably their parents as well, are wondering about the connection with the Royal Canadian Legion that you guys have. This is a connection that's been going on now for just over 3 decades. Basically in Canada, Royal Canadian Legion sponsor cadet corps regularly, and apparently some 30 odd years ago our branch was looking to give back more to the community and get more involved with the youth in the area, and we went out seeking a cadet corps, and we were lucky enough to find the Arkansas Division, and they have been wonderful partners with us ever since. Some of the other things that might be of interest to folks unfamiliar with some of the Canadian aspects that you'll note that we've got the Union Jack flag up there as well as we played God Save the King. The reasons for that is because the Canadian flag, and for that matter the official adoption of the Canadian anthem, didn't happen until after World War War. So every single Canadian that died during World War I and World War II died under the Union Jack and would have died singing God Save the King. In addition to that, actually, now that's right as Comrade Hart here and Malcolm here, the official flag they would have died under would have actually been the Red Ensign, which you see, that would have been the flag that the Army would have run with, which is also, you see at the end of the cemetery down here. So the British aspects of the service continue. I mentioned the connection to the UK because as I was thinking about what to say this week, I came across a couple of things that sort of jogged my mind and things that I wanted to reflect upon. The first was I saw through my Facebook screen a note for Vinyl Cafe, which was a radio program that was played on CBC Radio for probably about 18 years. Its host is a gentleman by the name of Stuart McLean. And while we don't have sort of an official poet laureate in Canada, in the same way that Walt Whitman is sort of seen as America's storyteller, Stuart McLean is seen as Canadians' storyteller, Canada's storyteller. And I remember one year in his episode that he had for Remembrance Day weekend, he talked about a young private, a gentleman by the name of George Lawrence Price. Now, Private Price was from Falmouth, Nova Scotia, which is a small little community, probably not that much bigger, or for that matter, that much unlike the area of Petaluma we are up here as we're up close to Liberty. A largely rural area, largely agricultural area. He didn't actually sign up to go to war in World War I. He was conscripted on October 15th, 1917, so in the last year of the war essentially, and he was assigned to the 2nd Division of the 6th Canadian Infantry Brigade. Now, the reason I think of him and the reason why Stuart McLean sort of had this story about him is because he has the designation, or you might say the notoriety, of being the last Allied soldier that was killed during World War I. At 4 o'clock in the morning on November the 11th, they were in Framery, Belgium, and they were given the assignment to go out and secure all the bridges. They expected light German resistance because the war was coming to an end, and at 9 o'clock in the morning they actually got notice that the war would officially cease hostilities as of 11 a.m. Yet they still went door to door, building to building, through these old historic brick buildings looking for German fighters. Because a lot of these buildings at the time had a brick or two knocked out so that you could put your gun muzzle through one and your eyes through the other and basically pick off people as they were coming through. Even though they knew the war was going to end in a couple of hours, they still kept up their duty and went house to house. As they got to the end of a particular road, they saw some Germans who were getting ready to mount a machine gun, and they began opening fire. They were protected by the brick walls until they pursued them out into the street. And unfortunately, George Lawrence Price at 10:57 on November 11th was hit by a German sniper as he went out into the road, and he died about a minute later at 10:58, 2 minutes before the guns fell silent. The other thing that I was reminded of, we get these notices all the time from Veterans Affairs Canada, being with the Legion. And one that we got on, I think it was Thursday, was from our Governor General, Mary Simon. So for our American audience, the Governor General is essentially the King's representative in Canada. So she or he acts on behalf of the King when the King is not in country, which, since he's also the King of England, spends most of his time over in Buckingham Palace, he's not in the country all that often. Although he did open Parliament this year, which was the first time that had happened in about 70 years. Mary Simon also holds the distinction that she is the first Indigenous person to hold the post of Governor General. And today, November 8th, is actually Indigenous Veterans Day. And it falls every year on the 8th, which would be the middle of Veterans Week, designated in Canada. And on Thursday, she released a statement that said, Veterans Week is a time to pay tribute to the exemplary service and sacrifices of those who served in uniform. Last spring, I was in the Netherlands to honor the memory of the brave members of our military who helped restore peace in Europe during the Second World War. I was touched by the Dutch people's outpouring of gratitude towards Canadian veterans, whose historic actions during that dark period changed the course of history and forged a lasting friendship between our two nations. Those who lost their lives and those who returned home, some whole, some scarred, all changed, will never be forgotten. Through their courage and determination in times of war, conflict, and peace, our veterans inspired generations. We have a duty to pass on their proud legacy, to take the time to listen to the shared stories. To our veterans and their families, thank you for your unwavering commitment to upholding the values we hold dear, lest we forget. The reason this particular one struck me was the specific reference to the Dutch people. Liberty Cemetery is located right next door here to Liberty School. And it was only yesterday that myself and Charlie were up here for Veterans Day Assembly that the school puts off here in the Community Hall on the Friday before the 11th each year. We're always there to hand out poppies, and each year the number of veterans that are sitting up at the front, and it's a really neat setup because they have these 2 or 3 rows up at the stage where the veterans sit. The kids sit on the floor right in front of them, facing them, and then all the parents are behind them or around the sides. So the kids are actually there performing to the veterans when you're there. And the message from the Governor General, and then coming up to this yesterday, I was reminded that Dutch children who are school children who are in the areas that have Commonwealth war grave cemeteries, each of the schools have adopted a cemetery. And these school children come out almost on a weekly basis to maintain the graves of the Commonwealth veterans that lay throughout their country. And it was only, I think, 7 years ago that I look at, well, for the most part, it wasn't these young men and women because it was 7 years ago, but I know at least 1 or 2 of them were present at the time when we were up here doing the exact same thing here at Liberty Cemetery. Cleaning up this cemetery, laying all this rock down, ordering twice as much as what we needed, which is why the ground is a little higher right in front of our plot than it is anywhere else because we just spread it out afterwards. And the work that gets done in terms of actually going through and doing this. I remember 3 of the cadets sitting down and painting the Union Jack as we went through. And I remember Commander Kieser, because they were having such a hard time, ran down to the hardware store to get some strips of the paint tape that they could use so that they could make their job that much more precise. And the care that they took in making sure that the servicemen and women and the families that lay here beneath us were looked after and were cared for and were remembered. So those are some of the things that I reflect upon today as we remember our veterans from Canada, the Commonwealth, and throughout our allied countries. As we get ready to close, I would like to call upon our chaplain one more time, Margaret Krieger, for the benediction, which will be followed by the retiring of the colors, which will be piped out by our piper, Charlie Martin.
Today we remember and pay our respects to those comrades whose death we mourn, but whose spirit still lives. May we strive to promote unity and the spirit of comradeship, never forgetting the solemn obligation we have assumed as members of the Royal Canadian Legion. And remembering them, may we ever pray, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Thank you all for attending.